You walk out to the coop in the afternoon, lift the lid on the nest box, and the first thing you see is not eggs. It is shell. Pale fragments stuck to the bedding, a yellow smear where the yolk soaked in, and one hen still standing in the box, pecking at what is left. That moment is hard. It feels personal. It feels like the flock did something wrong. And now you are short on eggs and short on patience. But egg eating almost never starts the way keepers assume. It is not a flock turning against you, and it is not a hen with a mean streak. In most backyard flocks, this behavior begins by accident and then it sticks. Because broken eggs are one of the easiest, richest food rewards a chicken can find. That is the part most keepers miss. Once a hen tastes the inside of an egg, the eggshell stops looking like an eggshell to her. It looks like food. From that point forward, every cracked shell, every soft-shelled egg, and every egg that gets stepped on becomes a small lesson she remembers. The good news is that egg eating is a learned behavior, which means it usually has a learnable cause. If you can find the cause, you can stop the habit before the whole flock picks it up. So let's walk through it the way an experienced keeper would, looking at the nest box, the feed, the routine, and the bird in that order. The first thing to understand is how this almost always starts. It starts with one broken egg. Maybe a hen jumped into the nest box too hard and cracked an egg already sitting there. Maybe two hens crowded into the same box and one got stepped on. Maybe the shell was already thin and the weight of another bird was enough to split it. Whatever the trigger, the result is the same. There is yolk in the bedding. A curious hen pecks at it. She finds out it is rich, salty, and easy to eat. That is the moment the behavior is born. Not from cruelty, not from boredom alone. From a single accidental break that taught the flock something they were never supposed to learn. This is why the nest box itself is the first place to look. Even before you start blaming a particular bird, start with the shell. If your eggs are breaking easily, something is wrong upstream of the hen who is eating them. Thin shells crack under normal hen weight, and once they crack, the lesson begins. Thin shells in a backyard flock usually come down to a handful of practical issues. Calcium intake is the most common one. Older hens need more of it than young ones, and a layer ration alone is not always enough, especially in heavy producers, and especially in hot weather when birds eat less feed overall. The standard small flock approach is to offer crushed oyster shell in a separate dish, free choice, alongside the regular layer feed. Hens who need it will eat it. Hens who don't, won't. That is how their bodies regulate. If you are feeding a lot of scratch grains, kitchen scraps, or table treats, that can also dilute the calcium and protein in the overall diet. Treats should stay a small share of what your flock eats. Most of their nutrition needs to come from a complete layer feed. Stress plays in here too. Heat stress, predator pressure, a sudden change in flock structure, or a rough integration can all show up as thinner shells for a while. So can age. A hen who has been laying for several years often produces a shell that breaks more easily than the one she made at 18 months. If multiple birds are laying soft or thin-shelled eggs, that is not a behavior problem yet. That is a nutrition or stress problem. That is about to become a behavior problem the moment the first egg cracks. Now let's talk about the nest box itself, because the box is where the habit either dies or spreads. A nest box that works against you usually has one or more of these features. It is too bright, so the eggs are highly visible to any hen passing through. It is too crowded, with not enough boxes for the number of layers, so birds pile in and step on each other's eggs. It is too shallow, so eggs roll into the open and get pecked at while the next hen settles. The general guideline most small flock keepers go by is roughly one nest box for every 3 to 4 hens placed in a quieter, dimmer corner of the coop. A box that feels like a private, dark, soft pocket discourages curiosity. A box that feels like a stage encourages it. Bedding depth matters more than people think. A few inches of clean, soft material, straw, shavings, whatever you normally use, cushions the egg when it drops and reduces the chance of a hairline crack. That becomes a full break later in the day. This is where the flock stops looking random, and the coop starts looking like part of the behavior. The next factor is collection routine. Eggs that sit in the box all day are eggs that are more likely to get cracked, stepped on, or noticed by a curious hen with time on her feet. If you are collecting once a day in the evening, you are giving any potential egg eater 8 to 12 hours of opportunity. If you can shift even one of those collections to mid-morning, right after the bulk of laying is done, you remove most of the temptation window. For flocks where egg eating has already started, collection frequency becomes one of your strongest tools. A hen who jumps into the box and finds nothing there, several days in a row, stops checking as often. While you are in there collecting, watch for two things. The first is any cracked or soft-shelled egg. Clean it out immediately, including any yolk that landed on the bedding. The second is whether one specific bird seems to time her visits to the box around laying activity from the other hens. That is useful information for later. Boredom plays a role too, especially in small runs without much to do. Chickens are foragers by nature. When a flock has no scratching space, no dust bath, nothing to investigate, and a long day to fill, they look for activity. A nest box with eggs in it counts as activity. This does not mean you need to turn the run into a playground, but adding a scratch area with leaves or straw, hanging a head of cabbage at beak level, scattering a small amount of grain in the bedding once a day, or simply giving the flock more square footage of run can pull attention away from the nest boxes during the long stretches between laying. A flock with something to do is a flock that walks past the nest box more often than it climbs into it. Now we get to the part most keepers want first: how to stop the habit once it has already started. The honest answer is that order matters. If you treat the symptom without fixing the cause, the behavior comes back. The first step is to fix the shells. Make sure layer feed is the primary diet. Offer oyster shell free choice in a separate dish. Cut treats and scratch back to a small share of the daily intake. Give it 2 to 3 weeks for shell quality to respond, because the shell on tomorrow's egg was largely built yesterday. The second step is to fix the nest box. Add bedding depth. Reduce light by moving the box, hanging a curtain of feed sack or fabric across the front, or shifting the box into a darker corner of the coop. Make sure you have enough boxes for the number of layers. Discourage hens from sleeping in the boxes, because birds who sleep in nests soil them, pack the bedding flat, and increase the chance of broken eggs in the morning. The third step is to fix the routine. Collect more often. Clean any break the moment you see it. Do not leave a yolk smear in the bedding for the rest of the afternoon. That smear is the lesson. Some keepers also use ceramic or wooden dummy eggs in the boxes during this period. The idea is simple. A hen pecks at what looks like an egg, gets nothing, and slowly learns that pecking eggs is not rewarding. It is not a magic fix on its own, but combined with the steps above, many small flock keepers find it helpful. Roll-away nest boxes designs where the egg gently rolls out of reach. As soon as it is laid are another option some keepers turn to in stubborn cases. They can work, but they are a tool, not a cure. If the underlying nutrition or crowding problem is still there, you will still see thin-shelled eggs and stressed birds. The rolling tray just hides the evidence. There will also be cases where, after you have done all the right things, one specific hen keeps doing it. She is in the box more than she should be. She times her visits to other birds laying. You see her with yolk on her beak. You watch her, and the pattern is clear. In that situation, separating that hen for a stretch of time, a week or two in a safely partitioned area where she still has line of sight to the flock can sometimes break the habit. She loses access to the reward. The rest of the flock loses her example. When she comes back, the nest boxes have already been corrected. Sometimes, in honest backyard practice, a confirmed egg eater stays an egg eater, no matter what you change. Long-term flock keepers often describe this as a real, if uncommon, outcome, and they make hard calls about that bird depending on their own situation. The point is that this should be the last step, not the first. Before you decide a hen is the problem, the nest box has to be ruled out. The feed has to be ruled out. The collection routine has to be ruled out. Most of the time, when those three are corrected, the behavior fades on its own. So when you walk out tonight or tomorrow morning, take a slower look at the nest boxes than you usually do. Notice how bright they are. Notice how deep the bedding is. Notice how many hens are trying to use the same favorite box while the others sit empty. Pick up an egg or two in your hand and feel the shell, not just look at it. Then check the feed area. Is there a separate dish of oyster shell? And is anything actually eating from it? Are treats and scratch a side dish? Or have they quietly become the main course? If you can, add one extra collection time tomorrow, even just a quick pass through the coop in late morning. Watch for a few minutes while you are out there. See which hen, if any, follows you to the boxes. Egg eating feels like a betrayal. The first time you find shell and yolk in the bedding. It is not. It is a habit that started with one accident, fed itself on opportunity, and grew because the conditions allowed it. Change the conditions, and most flocks change the behavior.